Welcome back to another episode of But Wait There's More here at Silver Wolf Comics and Games. Um, Last episode, we had a little encounter, little trip down towards Waterdeep, and Caliban had some fun, and Fergus, our dear ingenious dwarf, decided to gift him an award.
Yeah. It was usually given to Mithril Hall dwarves. It's kind of a running gag amongst the soldiery because they've, over time, learned that when you've got a pack of dwarves go out on a 3-day pass, there's always going to be some sort of an issue. There's always going to be some conquest or some story that's going to come back. And
to be fair, this isn't just dwarves. In real life, this happens in the military quite a lot. And both of us being veterans, it's something we're both familiar with.
The 50-mile rule exists even in Farron. Now, let's see. I actually had to write this down because at the time it was just trying to make the award and then trying to deliver it and actually try and keep a straight face while I was saying it. So I actually had to lay it out. Now, dwarven soldiers have a tendency to get into situations during leave or 3-day passes. The standard response of their fellows is naturally to cover for them. However, ribbing a troopy about his pursuits can give the game away when they're back in garrison, especially if the missus happens to be around. Therefore, we have developed a series of unofficial decorations that can be passed off as at least a way to cover what you're talking about. Now, here's Kaliban. He has managed to survive not only bedding 3 doppelgangers, but he actually managed to get out the other side of it alive, which I thought was actually very impressive. Now, since he wasn't actually in the service of Mithril Hall, I therefore had to brevet him. And so I brevetted him the private 3rd class in the Army of Mithril Hall, and then presented him with the Golden Order of the Invincible Pecker, Class 3. Now, I told him to wear it with pride. Oh, and the best part of it all is if you turn it over, there is a lambskin dispenser on the back side of it. Keeps him out of trouble. Now, I cobbled together a small thing to represent this wondrous award, and I've always been kind of touched about it because ever since I gave it to the guy, every time we game, without fail, he wears it.
Yes, every Wednesday night he brings his medal. It's this really nice medal that Ray made, and he wears it with pride.
Without fail.
Every week. And so that was, and Caliban was really touched because it was, he did this thing, and then the next week Ray had this ready for him, and it just added that little extra level of.
Well, Fergus just stopped up at a blacksmith with a couple of gold coins. Like, can I borrow your hammer for about a half an hour? And pounded them out. And yes, it's sort of crude, but you know, it's like it conveys the feeling. We're proud of him. Because otherwise, we all probably would have been in trouble.
Yeah, but now, meta, out of game. That's the kind of stuff that makes gaming groups really gel and work well together. Because now you are taking the extra time to do something nice for a fellow player, and so
on the spot correction.
And yeah. And it's one of those things. Just like when Ito or Steve was really intense about the horse, it's that little extra bit, that lagniappe, that makes it extra special. So they move on from the town, and Caliban, having heard about the 21 previously, wants to do the 21 himself when we get to Waterdeep. And I was kind of shocked, but at the same time, I was game for it. So I said, all right, when you get to Waterdeep, you'll get to do the 21. And he also said, well, I want to train all the way there.
So every tavern girl and hostess that we happen to cross paths with in the next 3 or 4 weeks of traveling on our way up the coast, and it's like, where'd Caliban go? And where's Susie, the hostess?
Strange. So that actually comes into the story later, but he wants to do the 21. So as they're getting there, I'm actually planning and plotting of how I'm going to have him
Plotting.
yes. I don't do that very often.
No, of course not.
And of an actual game mechanic, creating my own game mechanic for him to conduct this venture. And so the next couple of weeks of travel time is fairly uneventful. They have a few encounters, but nothing to write home about. They kill some kobolds, they do some things. They get to Waterdeep. Now, when they get to Waterdeep, Fergus, of course, needs to go visit the missus.
Gotta go home.
Gotta go see Lithian. Everybody else goes shopping. And we spent nearly a whole night for Caliban because he was going to do the 21.
And everybody had to sit in and put in their 2 cents.
Yes. And so I laid out for him. He goes to Lady Pushit's Emporium and
Of Exotica.
Of Exotica, excuse me. At least I didn't call it the Push It In. But he goes there and he lets her know that he wants to do the 21. At which point, everybody starts laying down bets. Now, this is 50-1 odds that he will actually make it through. Because there are 21 rooms. And in each room, he has to make 4 ability checks. The 4 ability checks that we went over before. The athletics, acrobatics, animal handling, and constitution. So, everybody in the party gets to lay down a bet, and Lithian, Fergus's wife, puts down a large wager on our dear tiefling.
Yeah, she senses that he's kind of fun, that he seems a lost soul. She's like, why not? This ought to be fun.
And her being an NPC, it's not a big deal for me as the DM to secretly put down a bet, because if he doesn't make it, nobody really loses any money, but if he does make it, it's my way of giving him a reward for actually completing this. Because I'm not going to give him experience and put him way ahead of the group, so I'm going to reward him monetarily if he does succeed. So people lay down bets. Some people bet that he'll make it to at least room 14. Some people bet that he won't get past 5, this, that, and the other.
The usual panoply. Everybody bets different. I thought he was going to go all the way.
So Fergus put down some money.
It was, I don't know, 50 quid. It wasn't much.
It was like 50 gold. Because by that point, they'd earned around that much gold. And so he goes, and he's rolling. And again, let me remind you, this is Glenn, to whom we'll say, the best laid plans of Mice and Glen. And normally the dice screw him. Well, in this case, they didn't. He rolled fairly well. Now, this system that I had in place, the odds of him getting through of perfectly is impossible. So I had a counterbalancing system where if he did really well in a room but fluffed 1 or 2 rolls, it would counterbalance. So you do really well, you do kind of poorly, you meet in the middle, you're okay. And because of his bonuses for training earlier, he's actually able to make it through all 21 rooms, surprisingly. Now, there were a couple rooms where he barely squeaks by, but he makes it to room 21. And the ups and downs, he does really well, he does poorly. He's kind of on an emotional roller coaster ride.
It's kind of a nail biter. And no, for anyone who's going to ask the question, room 21 is not my missus.
No, it is not. This time it is the correct girl is in the room.
Yeah, it's a 3rd shift. Bernadette? I forget.
Anyway, so the correct girl is in room 21, and by this point, the difficulty level is very high because
Astronomical.
I did 4 sections. The first 5 rooms were the easiest difficulty. The second 5 rooms were the next difficulty. Anyway, so forth and so on.
Yeah, it's like Dungeon Masters. This is a great way to do anything, up to and including building fortresses, or if you have to build, if you have an adventuring group that have to build fortifications or something like that, you can do the same thing that he's doing here for building walls, knocking walls down.
You just increase or lower the difficulty level, appropriately. The first layer of defense you get through very easily. The second layer, much, a little bit more difficult, and so on. So by the time he gets to room 21, it is very difficult, and he's sweating. The first couple rolls he doesn't roll very well, but then the last 2 rolls he aces. He didn't crit, but he rolled really high, and he's able to make it. And just the relief on his face that he made it through the 21.
Literally.
Yeah, he made, 84 rolls. 84 rolls he had to make to complete this and earn his spot in the 21 pantheon, as it were.
Yeah, because this had never been done. Now, I dreamt up the story. Yeah, I did not actually play test the story. It's my story. This, of course, my guy's going to be the hero of it. But Glenn, he just going to go in there, and he rolled his way through it and made it all the way. It was glorious.
Yeah, and so we're all really proud of him. Steve was a little, perplexed and just out of his element, having to witness this encounter.
This is purient.
Yeah, because as he's going through, I'm describing the level of success. I'm not getting really graphic, but at the same time,
you don't have to.
It's just like, oh, you made her real happy. He did okay. Let him go. He did well enough. That kind of thing. Or man, she really loved you.
Boy, that was a toe curler right there.
Woo! But so he gets through the 21, and Lady Pushit takes the award that
she happens to notice him wearing this,
and finds out what it's for, and so she takes the award and modifies it. So now instead of the 3 for the 3 that he conquered, the 3 doppelgangers he conquered, now it has a 21 because he's now a member of the 21 club, and it's magically enchanted that it is now a never-ending lambskin dispenser.
Yeah, I guess there is an elemental plane of that somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, he's got that. Over time, the metal does get modified. There are other attachments that go to it, just more for the, shall we say, group encounters he has a tendency to put himself in. But that's neither here nor there. You'll see about that later.
Yeah. But wait, there's more. Yeah. So we have a big encounter. He gets to do his thing, and he earns a substantial bit of money from Lithian. Lithian cuts him in, gives him half of the earnings, and so now he's able to go shopping in Waterdeep and buy some really nice gear and gear out his monk fairly well. And other people were able to buy some nice equipment with their winnings. Nothing spectacular. I don't want to overgear my party, so I kind of set a limit. I'm like, I let them know, okay, you can buy from this list of magic items, and I set the price. And generally, I set it pretty high. That way, they can't just get whatever their heart desires and become completely overpowered. So new DMs, watch out for that. It's not a good idea to just bathe your party in gold and magic items and just give them whatever they want, because now you have this issue where you're having to do a lot of extra work to create encounters that actually challenge them. Your players need to have a healthy respect and fear of you, and a fear of being able to die, because otherwise they're just going to do stupid things and assume that you're going to carry them through, or their gear is going to carry them through. And that's, basically they're playing a video game with the cheat codes on.
Yeah.
It's fun to a point, but it's...
Yeah, if you're running a group at or in or around level 4 and you have to conjure up demigods or minor deities to fight them, you have given them too much crap.
At which point you hit them with a rust spell or hit them with something that destroys
Genius.
that destroys their items.
Rust
A null,
monster.
like a null magic zone or something that just dispels the magic on their items, and now they're left with whatever level appropriate gear that is suitable.
Bupkis. Well, I got nothing.
Yeah. So he does that, and now they followed this cultist group that they've been following, and they're able to gear up. And now they have to follow them on the next leg of the journey, because Waterdeep is not where these cultists are bringing these treasures, and it's not their final destination. So they have to continue following these cultists on the next leg of the journey. So they get hired onto a caravan to travel north to Neverwinter, where it's Lord Neverember is trying to rebuild that city. And so they have to go to the Karnath Roadhouse, which is kind of the staging point for the rebuilding of that city.
And that is another long roundabout trip.
Yes.
Because you're going through, whereas from Baldur's Gate to Waterdeep, you're dealing with low mountains and rolling hills and so on, and mostly you're worried about brigands or maybe the occasional ghost or whatever you might cross paths with. Once you start headed north from Waterdeep, you start running into more things where there are areas that are just chock full of villainous, bad, haunted, or otherwise nasty things. So you got to start riding around with your head on a swivel every 5 seconds, because you never know what's going to come running out of the bushes at you.
Ambushing you.
Now, on top of that, we're trying to watch outside for what's there. We're also trying to watch inside to keep track of these characters that we're supposed to be following.
Right, the bad guys, and so they can figure out where they're taking all this loot to, what the ultimate goal of this whole expedition is. Now, somewhere along the way, and we wish we could remember the context of the joke, but one of our characters, or players, made a joke about JFK. Again, we wish we knew the context and the actual joke, but he did, and so my brain went to, well, I guess they're going to run into the grassy knoll. Now, in D&D, for the uninitiated, there is a creature called a gnoll. Gnoll. It is a dog-like humanoid that is one of those creatures that is kind of cannon fodder for you. Throw a bunch of gnolls at them. It's a step up from kobolds, but you get the idea. They're there to get slaughtered by the group. However, the grassy knoll is special. The grassy knoll, appropriately, is a sniper. In this case, an NPC that I use a ranger class for. It's like one of our characters. The whole idea is just range combat. You deal a ton of damage from far away. And so, in this case, this one has camouflage and is very good at hiding.
And the crossbow doesn't help any either.
Yeah.
To quote the masters, "Message for you, sir."
And so they will encounter the grassy knoll shortly after leaving Waterdeep.
Bastard.
And how that encounter goes is they're driving along, and they're driving through some ruins when all of a sudden the person that made the joke gets hit with this arrow. Now the arrow this one arrow puts him down to nearly dead. And so he immediately, as a reaction, blinks, or I think misty steps behind something that hides him. Another piece of ruins that completely blocks line of sight. But that is the announcement of the grassy knoll. All they know is that there's a sniper, and now there's all these other gnolls, that are ambushing them. And so the entire caravan is under attack.
Yeah, they pretty much swarm us out of this. They come up the sides of the road, out of the ruins. It was hairy,
It
really was.
Because Fergus is at the head of the caravan, just kind of doing his thing, being on the lookout. But now they are completely surrounded. So the flanks are collapsed, all hell's breaking loose. And at this point, our friendly neighborhood ranger decides that he's going to put to use these new slippers that he got. They're the slippers of spider climb, which allow him to run up any surface that is not slick with either oil or ice. Oh, he's excited because now he's Spider Rick.
Yeah, every 5 minutes he's up the side of a tree or up the side of a building. What are you doing up there? Get down here. But off he goes, and he's vertical.
And so he runs up a building, and he's perched on top of this ruin, and he decides he wants to have a sniper duel with the grassy knoll.
Which was just like the bar fight earlier, where him and another archer sitting there zooping away at each other from across the room. Now, here they are on opposite sides of, in an overgrown and abandoned street. While in the ensuing melee below is bad enough, due to the initial rush, things went bad for us the first couple of rounds, but we rallied. And once we managed to start to pull ourselves closer together, there was more of an opportunity to resist as a unit, as a group. So once we could actually team up against the bad guys, we started to pick them off one after another. Unfortunately, above
is this sniper duel. However, what he doesn't realize, what Turin, the ranger, doesn't realize, is that the grassy knoll is of comparable or higher level than him and hits much harder.
He's a good shot.
He's a very good shot, and after a couple of rounds of shooting back and forth, the grassy knoll takes out Turin, at which point Turin falls off this building and craters onto the ground and has to make death saving throws, one of which he automatically fails because he fell 2 stories.
When using magical gear like this, always try, if you can. Okay, if you want to climb the outside of a building or a cliff face or a wall of some construction, always get to the top. Find a window, climb inside. So if you fall down, you are lying on a floor. Do not stand on the outside of the building where when you are rendered unconscious, you just fall off the side of the building and impact on the sidewalk.
Yeah, because that's bad times. Well, fun times for me.
Yeah, he bounced. There's a 15% chance of survival if you bounce.
So he bounced, but as penalty for falling 2 stories, I made him automatically fail his first death saving throw, and he had to make some more, but one of our healers was able to get to him in time and stabilize him. However, now the sniper duel is over, and Grassy Knoll can turn his attention to other people. Well, Fergus some, but he's mainly trying to get the mage or the wizard, because Steve was the one who made the JFK joke. So it was Grassy Knoll who was going to take out the guy who made the JFK joke.
He was probably sitting in the tavern. I am kicking myself because I have lost the context. But he was probably sitting there and took offense at the tone of the joke and decided to put an arrow in the guy.
So Grassy Knoll is up there just slinging arrows, starting to really hurt the party, and it's looking like he might take out the entire party by himself. But Fergus, our mighty fighter, runs,
the beard blowing in the breeze,
runs to the base of the building that the Grassy Knoll is in, at which point the Grassy Knoll decides it's a good idea to leave town, because while he's great, at range, he doesn't want a fighter in his face ruining.
Yeah, he's sequestered himself inside the corner of a ruined building. Most of the exterior walls have fallen. Now, the last thing he wants as an archer, regardless of any physical strength, is he doesn't want that very angry-looking dwarf to get up here. Because when he does get up here, not only is he going to be mad at him, he's going to be pissed off that he made him climb all the way up here.
Right, so as soon as Fergus gets up there, Grassy Knoll is gone. He booked it. And so we have now been introduced to another recurring villain.
Jerk. Stand and fight.
But Grassy Knoll is more of a bounty hunter, so he kind of picks his moments. He doesn't quite have the vendetta that Tick-Tick has, but he's there. The threat of the Grassy Knoll is I don't want to say ever present, but it's there just in case I need something really nasty.
Whenever we're doing too well.
Out of the shadows, arrows start flying.
Message for you, sir.
So that happens, and then they carry on with the caravan, and here comes the first of a very serious series of blunders by Jareth.
Dear lad.
Yes. In this case, they're kind of being followed by one of the cultists. Now, this is written into the story as part of the adventure module, that one of the cultists kind of takes notice of them and thinks he might recognize them. And so he starts following them to try and discern whether he is or not. And so it allows for some intrigue and for the party to deal with a situation that has arisen. Well,
yes, make all the fighters, all the people who most of the time focus only on smashing and breaking and stomping bad guys and going on about. Now, let's put them in a situation where they have to think.
Yes. Unfortunately for them, Jareth notices this guy. He's one of the only ones that actually perceives that this guy is following, and he decides to tip a fedora at him. Like he looks at him and tips a fedora. There's a problem with this. In all the time that they had to shop at Waterdeep, not once did the child tell me that he bought a fedora.
I don't think fedoras exist on that plane of existence.
Yeah, I don't think there is a fedora in
I
Faerun.
don't believe there is a fashion plate that says this is a fedora.
But he said that he tips his fedora at the guy.
And the funny part is he probably was tipping a trilby, but he thought it was a fedora.
Anyway, so now the guy is like, oh, I do recognize them, and starts booking it to the rest of the cultists who are in the back. This is an issue.
Last wagon.
Because now they have to stop said cultist before he gives up. He warns the rest of the cultists that these guys are the same ones from Greenest, and they are onto us. In which case, a chase ensues, where Matt's mom, playing Muriel the Rogue, is running after him, and so is Jareth and a couple of the other characters, and in broad daylight. They are chasing this guy through a caravan in broad daylight.
10 a.m. in a pine forest on a caravan trail, so it's nice and open, bright clouds, squirrels, chipmunks, songbirds, and
a chase. And, well, luckily, sort of, for them, Muriel is able to critically hit this guy with her hand crossbow. She shoots him in the back, she critically hits him, and he's just a peon cultist, so he doesn't have a lot of hit points, and she kills him. In broad daylight.
In front of the whole caravan.
So now I'm like, okay, you killed him in broad daylight. What do you do? So now they're like, we start yelling for Fergus that there's bandits in the woods. Fergus is at the head of the caravan. He doesn't know what's going on.
I'm all the way at the point end of the caravan. No one told me anything. I'm not even hearing them. They're just riding along. It's like we're just setting out. So, okay, here we go. Another long day in the saddle. And then there's yelling. And it takes them a while to explain to me what happened. That they just shot this guy down.
No. They didn't even do that. Like, Ray knows what's going on. Fergus doesn't. So it's that situation of in-game, out of game. Out of game he knows, in-game he doesn't. So he doesn't even know what's going on. All he hears is, Fergus, bandits in the woods! And so, what does he do?
Dwarven dismount. To wit, and anyone who's ever been a fan of the Lord of the Rings series, I believe it's on the trip to Helm's Deep.
Yes, Helm's
That
Deep.
is the definition of a dwarven dismount. The horse proceeds in some forward direction at speed. The dwarf, however, does not, and falls off the bloody horse. So once I get up and rearrange everything and figure out, okay, now by this time Fergus has kind of cut an idea that, oh, this needs to be a distraction because evidently they're trying to, oh good lord. So what does he do? Because none of the caravan drivers, none of the wagon drovers or anything like that have a clue about this. I mean, we've taken no one into our confidence because honestly, you can't really trust any of the people that we've been dealing with. There's been some thieving, there's been some stealing, so you can't really, hey, this is what we're really doing, because they'll just tell everybody else. So anyway, here's the dwarf. He's going to go charging across the forest, into the verge, so to speak, out of sight, but still within earshot, at which point he proceeds to raise 9 kinds of hell. Now, he's trying to do this by himself, so he's running back and forth like a maniac out. Yeah, it's like banging on the shield and hitting trees and upsetting chipmunks and this thing, pine cones falling, tree branches flying everywhere. And
chopping trees down.
Yeah, I'm chopping trees down and everything else, and just trying to raise all kind of general hell. Well, the guys in the first wagons are beginning to believe that there might actually be something going on. They're actually starting to circle the wagons again. And of course, as the grapevine goes down through the caravan, they're starting to watch the trees, because it's not usually something for reavers to just come from one direction. They hit you from everywhere at once. So nobody is looking at the dead guy.
And the people that are trying to move him. So now that there's a distraction and the drivers are like, oh crap, we need to circle up because we're being attacked, the rest of the party is running to this corpse and are trying to drag him into the bushes. And they are on a timer. They only have so long before the back of the caravan and the rest of the cultists come up and see their dead buddy. And it is a near thing. As the cultists are driving up, they're able to grab and jump into the bushes in the side and disappear so that his buddies don't notice that he's dead, and they drive on and, oh, it's all clear, we drove away the bandits, good job, we're doing our job, guarding the caravan.
Yep, Fergus comes out of the bushes, get branches, he's got a rabid squirrel in his beard, he's just, are they gone?
Yeah, so that was his first little mess up, but the thing that it wasn't that he tipped the guy off, because that was probably going to happen at some point or another, and they were going to have to deal with him. It was the problem where he introduced an element, he got an item without even asking me. If he asked, I'd like to go to a hat shop and buy a fedora, or I'd like to buy this, or I'd like to do that. Asking me to do something is fine, because then I can arrange it, I can set something up, I can give you a price. I can make it happen. I'm a fairly reasonable person.
Well, at the same time, he's introducing an element that could cause the rest of the party to fall victim to something, because he is as an individual engaging the people that we are trying to follow.
Right.
Now, maybe this guy actually did recognize him. Maybe it's just like, well, the ones that attacked us in Greenest, they just had a big fellow like this one with them. But he went out of his way to draw attention to himself without saying anything to any of us first.
Right.
Now, if he had simply, there's always we all think out loud. Wouldn't it be funny if? Or, hey, it would be funny if I did this. If is a big word when you got something like this going on. Now, you can play the joke. There's always a certain amount of banter back and forth. I mean, all of us, we're all adults. We're all good, well, except for one. And, we all carry on pretty much through the whole thing. But he's going to go out there and say, I do this.
It's that absolute statement that really got me. So, I went with my patented response of, okay. and as the semi-evil DM that I am, I find a way to punish. So he had the fedora, and he tipped his hat, and craziness ensued. But wait, there's more.
It's glorious.
And so they go on. That happens. A couple of in-game weeks go down the road. A couple of sessions later, for whatever reason, they do some things, they have some encounters, they kill some stuff. He decides
minor fights,
minor things. It's stuff to give them to do on the way to their next stop. He decides that he wants to go chat them up, to go to the cultists and talk to them. Now, if he was playing a bard or a sorcerer with really high charisma, and he wanted to insinuate himself into that group and kind of undercover, like, hey, I'm really into this Cult of the Dragon thing that y'all are about, or find some kind of way to ingratiate himself to the group, I'd have been okay with this. That would have made sense. And it's like, okay, good, you're doing what you're supposed to, finding out more about them, getting information and whatnot. The problem is he's a fighter with not that high charisma.
And he's doing it again. He goes off
on his own. Without discussing it with the rest of the group, for the group to say, no, that's a bad idea, let's approach it a different way.
Or at least don't go anywhere alone.
Yes, but he wanders off alone, and he goes, hey, how's it going? Y'all look pretty cool, what's up? Or, just something that it's not there. It kind of gave me almost a brain aneurysm, and like, you did what? It was one of those where I had to take the glasses off and, do my... They're like, oh no, Hans is doing the thing.
Now, I have found that there is a way to diffuse this. Now, this is where I have developed a side character, which is actually a version of Fergus, but it's played in the real world. The only difference is that instead of the chainmail and the tunic and the shield and all of that, he's still got the hat and the beard, but he's wearing a very well-cut suit. And he kind of slides in, because they go to the still shot, with Hans rubbing his temples or trying to maintain some kind of gray matter within his skull without exploding out of his ears. And Fergus comes in, he kind of slides into the shot. Hello, I'm Fergus Stonebreaker with Mutual of Farron. And he proceeds to show this is the DM in his natural environment. You will notice the removal of the eyewear. This shows that there is pressure behind the eyes. The pressure put there most likely by a player screwing around. Also, you will notice near the temple there is what I refer to as the Clint Eastwood vein. Now, I am a great fan of Mr. Eastwood's work, but I always wondered if he ever really got angry, if that vein would actually just pop out the side of his head like that one was about to.
And I have that vein. It pulses whenever too much craziness happens, where I'm just completely dumbfounded by what the player is trying to do. And Matt has been the instigator of the majority of those situations. Again, good kid, good initiative, bad judgment. Military term. That applies to him a lot. But so he does this, and it's like, okay, roll for it. And he rolls charisma, his persuade check, and of course he rolls very low. Now, at this point I have a choice. As the DM, do I screw over the entire group, or do I punish him specifically? In this case, I choose him specifically.
I choose you as tribute.
Yes, he has been chosen as tribute. And I do this so hopefully he learns a lesson, because he's kind of new at D&D and whatnot, and so I've been trying to coach him along and to teach him, and other members of the group have tried as well. But at this point, it kind of hasn't sunken in, and so now I have to punish him thoroughly. So as he's trying to talk to them, one of the cultists sneaks up and chloroforms him. He's just out cold. And the rest of the group, because he didn't tell the group what he was doing, none of the group knows where he's at. Just the next day, he's gone. Where did he go? Nobody knows. Mama Shmuel doesn't even know. She just knows that he's alive somewhere. And Mama Shmuel is out of her mind with worry. She's spinning around.
She is actually concerned.
She's concerned because he's been treating her well. And so at this point, he's earned her respect. He has
been listening.
Yeah, he's been listening to her. When I use Mama Shmuel as a way to reprimand him, he's kind of listened to her, and he was respectful, and so now Mama Shmuel is worried about, oh my baby, where did he go? I know he's alive, but I can't feel him anywhere. So
yeah, we tried to use her as a compass. It just didn't work. It might have been the helmet.
It might have been, but as a DM, I wasn't going to allow it, because this was a situation where the group was not going to save Jareth. Jareth had to save himself because he messed up so bad. And so what I did, or what I had the cultist do, was strip him completely of all his gear and dump him down a well. Now, this is a very special well. The cultists don't know it's a special well. It's just a well. We dump him down here, he dies, whatever. But now he's naked in a well that leads to a labyrinth. Now, he can't climb up this well. The walls are too smooth. So now the only way to go is forward.
It's a funny thing about Farron. Anything that's more than 3 feet underground is probably attached to something that goes somewhere. It probably has a bunch of critters living in it.
In which case, this is true because I drew up a labyrinth, a maze that he had to fight his way out of. Now, he had a chance to survive, and in fact he did survive through the labyrinth. He was able to fight some stuff, get some weapons, fight his way through some other things, get some armor, and continue on and fight his way out of the labyrinth. He got out. But now he's out in the middle of the wilderness.
That's a great big hairy butt.
A big great hairy butt. He is out in the middle of the wilderness, so now he has to make survival checks to see if he can get back. And so he's rolling checks, and at the same time I'm rolling for random encounters. Well, yes. Well, he's nearly there. He can see the caravan off in the distance, like way far out. He can almost yell to him when he encounters 2 ogres.
No.
Not 1, but 2. And he fights. I mean, he dukes it out, and he's fighting hard. He's using every last ability thing that he can. He's throwing everything at them.
Every club in the bag.
And he manages to kill one of them. And he does some damage to the other one, but it just wasn't enough. The second ogre got him and pasted him. And that is where dear Mama Shmuel collapses to the ground because her baby died. Now, he got knocked out, and so again, death saving throws have to happen, and if he'd have been able to successfully make all 3 of his death saving throws, make 3 successes, he would have stabilized, and then Mama Shmuel would have been able to find him. However, he failed 3 times, and so that is where Jareth, Matt's first character, met his end. He died. Mama Shmuel collapsed. All the magic that was tying them together dissipated, and that's
she
how
kind of did a what a world, and thud.
And so that's how the group knew that poor Jareth had died.
Now, of course, it was kind of a shock because we're all like, "Uh-oh, what happened? Oh, oh boy, yeah, she's stiff." Now what?
At which point the druid's like, "Can I have her hat?" Because they'd actually enchanted it to be a color-changing hat.
Yes, I mean it was still the steel. It was still the steel helmet, got the horns on it and everything, but it rotated through the spectrum. Well, I mean it was a decision. You could turn it on or off, but it's just rotating through the spectrum, the whole rainbow in this big iron hat. And well, once we shook Mama Shmuel out of it
and rinsed it out.
Yeah, we had a bit of a ceremony. It's easy. You scoop a bucket full of dirt out the ground. It's like, may rest in pieces. We planted a fern and we moved on.
Now, some characters felt a little bit more attached to Mama Shmuel than Jareth, and I think they mourned her a little bit more.
Yeah, it was kind of, I don't know. It's like that. It's like that one crazy aunt that it's like, oh no, here she comes again. But at the same time, she's so loopy that she's fun.
So that was where Jareth dies, and now he's got to roll up another character. Matt's got to roll up another character, and he gets to come into the story once they reach their next destination, and y'all will get to find out about Oben Wilson.
Yes, that's with a B.
Yes. Owen Wilson with a B. Yeah.
And a hat.
Yeah, and a crazy hat.
Terrible.
It's interesting. He had some phobias. You'll get to learn about those because. But wait, there's more. So y'all go ahead and please like, share, subscribe. Again, links to our Facebook page and our Twitter. It will be in the description below. And y'all have a good night.
Ciao.